How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Hey, thank you so much for having me on and having this discussion. I'm really, really excited for it.
No problem. Just give me a few minutes to get all the I'm brain farting. OBS stuff set up here.
Yep.
That's not helpful. There we go. All right. You are live. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I am Brandon, Germany. I live here in Portland, Oregon, unfortunately. Um, I am 27, I think. I think I'm 27. I don't know. Once you get past your teens, everything just kind of blurs.
This is true.
I found you. Yeah. I found you because I follow Nerdrotic and all the other guys, and a short from yours popped up actually talking about Nerdrotic, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I saw that I clicked on your channel. I was watching more videos, interacting with them, and then I saw the short that you posted about morality and God, and I said, hey, that's a interesting question. I'd never heard it before. And so I commented, and then you and I connected, and here we are.
Yeah. Okay. So the short was essentially, well, my argument in that was fairly simple. I can break it down fairly quickly. So like the I know lots of people like to say that God is the ultimate moral authority, and then my point is, well, if God is the ultimate moral authority, um, could he say murder is okay? And I would argue no, he absolutely couldn't, because it would still be evil. And if he can't say that, then he's not the ultimate moral authority.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Euthyphro dilemma?
No.
Okay, so Euthyphro, Plato wrote about this character, Euthyphro. He was having a conversation with Socrates, and Euthyphro said almost the exact same thing that you were saying. He says that is the pious loved by the gods because it is pious, or is it pious because it is loved by the gods? Basically, in the same vein of thought that you have, whereas, are things good because they're good? Or are things good because the gods like them? Now, in Plato's time, he lived in a polytheistic society, and so there was all sorts of issues around that because even within Greek mythology, the gods couldn't agree on what was right and wrong. But in our monotheistic society, trying to use that argument with God, I think, is very interesting, and it raises a lot of good questions. So I'm really glad that you had that question. It's a very thought provoking question.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess like what would be your counter? Because it sounds like essentially what you're saying, that murder is evil because, well, it sounds like you're just stuck on murder is evil because God says it's evil.
Yeah. So the Christian response, and before I say my side of it,
Mm-hmm.
when I say I'm a Christian, that can mean so many different things in today's society because you have such a wide variety of people who call themselves Christian. In fact, I would dare say 90% of Christians in America have never read their Bible and don't know the basic tenets of Christianity. So, with that out of the way, I am a Reformed Christian. So, I hold to the doctrines of the Reformation coming out of the Catholic Church. So, with that in view, the problem of the Euthyphro dilemma is there's two horns to it. There's the problem of uh, are things good because God says it's good, or are things good because God because they're good aside from God, outside of God. And the Christian response would be, excuse me, the Christian response would be neither. The Christians would say that things are good because of the nature of God. things are not good or evil apart from God, but because he created mankind and because we are created in his image, we reflect his character, or we suppress his character, or we just flat out give him the middle finger and do whatever we want and break his character. So when we say something is good or evil, we are reflecting his nature, his character. So God can't say he could not tell us to kill. There are many things that God cannot do. He cannot make a rock so big that he can't lift it. He cannot lie. He cannot do certain things. And this is one of the things that he can't do. He cannot tell us to murder, not because there's something outside of him, but because his nature prohibits him from breaking his ontology. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, again, it almost sounds like you're agreeing with me because that would mean that obviously there's something that he doesn't control. Obviously, he won't be the ultimate moral authority if he can't say murder is okay.
Yeah, I would say that I wouldn't use the word control. I would say that God, as God, has ultimate authority over his creation. And he created us in his image, and we reflect that nature that's within him. So I wouldn't say that he can't control morality. I would say that morality is intrinsic to our being, and God cannot break his own character.
I mean,
Sorry.
even though like you're approaching this from the Christian perspective, and I guess I haven't really said this on stream. People might be able to pick it up. You doing okay, by the way? You can grab a drink if you need to. Mm.
Yeah. Yes. I am so sorry.
You're good.
I'm
You're
gonna
good.
go grab a
There's a
glass
reason
of
I keep a
water.
drink on me.
Yes, you're smart. You're smarter than me. I'm so sorry. I'll be right
You're
back.
good. You're good. I kind of need a drink now. Give me one. Let's see. I don't know if he left his earbuds plugged in, but I don't know. I hope he can hear me. So, but I guess I'll go ahead and explain it to you guys since you guys are watching. I'm not Christian, but essentially, I would define myself as an agnostic atheist, which is I don't um, I don't know if there is a God. I don't. There could be a God, although I think if there is a God, it's not anything remotely like anything the religions teach. I think it's most likely something out there. But also the acknowledgement that almost if there is a okay, I was just going over my kind of my religious philosophy, but essentially I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't know if there is a God. I think an argument can be made that if there is a God, he at least doesn't care, but also that God. Where was I at? If God, I just said it too. Uh, oh yeah, and if there is a God, it's likely something that none of our religions know about. So I guess the question for you would be, what would you define as necessarily even the Word of God? And you are muted. I was just making sure you know. It's all good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh fuck.
I even talk about, presuppositionalism?
No, no. I had you muted. I apologize. Just for the past couple
Oh,
minutes.
you're good.
Just since you came back, you're good.
Yeah, yeah. So I was saying that I'm a presuppositionalist. So before I talk about what is the Word of God, I would talk about the existence of God. Because ultimately, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Talmud, none of it matters if God doesn't exist. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So before we deal with any of that, we would have to deal with, does God exist? You say he does not exist. I say that he does. So in
Well,
your worldview,
I guess
and
just to clarify, my argument isn't necessarily he clearly doesn't exist. My argument would be there's no evidence that he exists.
okay, your channel, from what I've seen so far, and I've listened to most of your debates, you believe that racism is wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. As a general rule, yeah.
Why?
Because you shouldn't be putting down people just for features that they can't control.
Why not?
Because it's bad for society as a whole.
It's bad for society as a whole.
Yeah, to be putting those ideas out there. Yeah.
So why is it good that so you're saying society as a whole is
Yeah.
harmed when we engage in racism?
Yeah.
Why is it good that society flourish?
Why is it good? Because we live in society and we want it to do well and we want to live in a we always want to improve society.
Why does it matter that society improves?
I mean, to be blunt, all our stuff is here.
Yeah, okay. So do humans have meaning?
Do humans have meaning? I don't know. Like honestly probably not much of one, which is a little scary, but um I don't know. We have meaning to ourselves and the people in our lives.
Okay, so but ultimately, do humans have intrinsic value?
I mean, to the whole to the universe as a whole, honestly, probably not.
Okay, so humans objectively do not have value.
I mean, like I said, to the universe as a whole, not really, but like to our lives and the people around us, yes.
So humans have subjective value.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. Like at the macro level, not really, but at the micro level, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, who gets to determine if humans have micro value?
Micro, who gets to determine? That
Yeah, well, you're
seems
saying that
like
like big picture humans don't have value, but small picture they do. So
sure.
so my question is, who gets to determine why we have value?
Who gets to? It's I'm not even sure where you're going with that. Who gets to determine it? It's um, just the people around us. But like, I mean, we all live in a society. We all have to work with this society and try to improve it as we go, so we have better lives.
But what if someone decides that they don't want to work with society and they decide that being a sexist and a racist is what's right for them?
Okay, I feel like we're going off the beaten path here a bit, but I will go along a little bit. Well, I mean, racism. I mean, they've done studies on this. Racism is bad for everybody. It's not just bad for minorities. It's bad for white people. So it's good to, frankly, not engage with it. To focus on actual issues.
Yeah, I know it feels like we're deviating, but there is a point to it. Um, so the point I'm trying to get at is if humans, at whatever level you want to draw the line, if humans don't have value, then you can't say that racism is objectively wrong. Because if a certain society decides, hey, in this society, uh, black people don't matter, so we're going to do X, Y, and Z to them. you and me, couldn't say anything about it because they have decided something.
Well, I mean, we could say something about it, but like it's also their society, and it's going to be their issue to deal with.
So would it be morally correct for a society to enslave black people because they have decided that black people don't have value?
Well, I mean, of course not. But you bring up an interesting point because I mean, there's quite a few verses in the Bible where God is okay with some slavery.
Do you know which ones?
Well, I can dig them up right now. The internet's a useful tool. Let's see.
There's
Let's.
no need. Uh, the uh, the Mosaic Code condemns slavery, and it says that men who steal other men are to be put to death. The idea that the Bible condones slavery is a 21st century anachronistic idea that is not founded in proper exegesis of the scriptures whatsoever. When the Bible talks about slavery, what it actually is talking about is what we would consider indentured servants. For the biblical times, if the Israelites were to look at us today, they would call all of us slaves. I am a slave to my employer. You
Oh
are a
no.
slave to whoever
I
employs
mean,
you.
if you
We are
want to
all
argue
enslaved.
wage slaves, yeah, absolutely. That is still very much a thing that exists. Here we go. Exodus
So I'm just talking
21
about
2.
slavery as a whole.
Yeah, Exodus 21 2. When you buy a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, but in the seventh he shall go free person without debt. Um, that he's defining how to slave, how to, like, I guess maybe it's cool you get to go free after 7 years, but it's cool to have a Hebrew slave for 6 years. That's not a great take.
Do you know what would happen to a Hebrew who couldn't afford to live anymore?
Uh,
Like if the expenditures of life just got too much and and he couldn't provide for his family, do you know what he would do?
well, why don't you go ahead and educate me?
He would sell himself into slavery,
Okay. Do you,
and
do you think that
the
do you think
slave
that was
master,
do you think that was good though?
100%, absolutely, no doubt
Really,
about it.
really. You don't think maybe
Yeah,
a society that
because
allows
the
that is maybe has issues that should be addressed?
Not at all, because the slave master was to look after his slaves and provide for his slaves, not anything unlike our current structure of employee and employer relationships.
Yeah, no. Listen, wage slaves are an issue, but like, I mean, you're just saying right there it's okay. Like, if you have too much debts to just be enslaved.
As opposed to what? What's the alternative? Die?
Well, the alternative would be to address the issue. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, we're largely dealing with money. Like, there's lots of ways we could deal with that. I mean, hell, I'd rather be a wage slave than, fucking just slave.
Uh, I mean, yeah, I would too. I would say that society is getting better.
Yeah.
But the idea that the Bible tells people to go enslave others is absolutely fallacious. It's been disproven. The Mosaic Law condemns those who kidnap and enslave people. And it says that the kidnappers are to be put to death. So we have to understand the slavery of ancient times is not at all the slavery of American times. What America did was evil, and the slavers would have been put to death according to the Mosaic Law.
What exactly is the Mosaic Law? Educate me on this one.
Moses, the Ten Commandments, the first five books of the Bible, Pentateuch, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Leviticus.
Oh, okay. So you're just okay. Ten Commandments. Okay. Yeah.
It's just Moses. It's just Moses's laws. It's the laws of ancient Israel.
Okay. There's some interesting takes in that one as well. Like, obviously, one of the commandments. Let me just bring them up so I can just read them to you. All right, here's one of the more famous ones. Might be fun to dive into. So, the fifth commandment: honor thy mother and father. What if your father is like a murderer or something?
What if he's a murderer? Are
Yeah,
you're no longer under obligation to honor him if he's murdered someone? That's what you're saying?
yeah, of course not. Mm.
I think I think that you are to honor your parents insofar as you are not dishonoring God. And the Mosaic law clearly says that thou shalt not kill. And those who kill and are tried by 2 or 3 witnesses and found guilty are to be put to death. So you would honor your father up to the point that he committed murder, and now you are to kill him. In fact, in the Mosaic law, there are many instances where the first person to bring an accusation against someone is to be the first person to throw the stone. So if I, as a son, caught my father committing murder, I would bring it to the elders of whatever city I was in. There would be a trial, which is actually where we get our judicial system today, is from the Mosaic Code. There would be a trial. There would be witnesses brought to bear, and if he was found guilty, then I would be responsible for murdering my own father. So it is not at all a blanket honor them, support them in their murder, you do whatever they say. Not at all. There is always context and there's always principles within Scripture. And the first one, the greatest one, is to love the Lord your God. And if God commands you to turn in your mother or father for a crime that they've committed, then you are under obligation to do so.
I mean, I do think it's interesting because you seem to be. So you said like the first one, so like that's the most important one. Thou shalt not kill is actually number 6 behind honor thy father and mother.
Yeah, the first commandments are about our relationship to God, and then the last commandments are about our relationship to each other. But Robert, if we can bring it back to the existence of God, if you want to have a debate on the Mosaic Law, I'd be happy to do that. But I think if when we talk about human value, because I agree with you, racism is wrong, sexism is wrong, treating people with disrespect is wrong. But the question is why? Because if God doesn't exist in the atheistic system, so do you believe that there was a Big Bang or something, and then boom, here we are?
I mean, Big Bang's probably the one we with the most scientific evidence, but I don't even know if I believe that because probably in a few years we'll have a new theory. Who knows though? Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always evolving and
I don't
changing.
pretend to know.
Right, right. I wouldn't presume that you would, know the exact cause, but you would say that something other than a personal God created the universe, yeah?
Well, like I said, I'm agnostic. So is it possible there is some sort of higher being that created the universe? Sure. I think it's highly unlikely that it's any religion we figured out. I find religion interesting because I feel like just to get into it, like lots of people are very confident in their own religion, but like all the religions are very contradictory to each other, and they all have and everybody's very passionate that there's the right one, but there's no evidence really for any of them to be accurate, which is just something I find fascinating. Like, oh, what are your thoughts on all the other religions in the world?
Um, you say that there's no evidence for the religions. What evidence would you accept?
uh, I guess actual evidence. I mean, there's not even evidence that
Like
Jesus ever
empirical
existed.
evidence?
Yeah, something.
There's wait, whoa, 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 whoa. There's no evidence that Jesus existed.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things that lots of people
Did
like to
Julius
cling
Caesar
to.
exist?
Yeah, there is actually evidence Julius Caesar existed.
Do you know what the evidence for Julius Caesar is?
We can dive into it, but
It's 20 to 30 partial manuscripts from Tacitus, from a few other Roman historians that were written and copied about 900 years after the event, and we have 20 to 30 of them in the world in existence right now. For the New Testament, we have over 5,000 manuscripts. If we got rid of all of those, we would still have about 2,000 New Testament citations by the early church fathers in the first 300 years alone. Jesus died and was resurrected and showed himself to 500 people, which is recorded in the Bible. The first 300 years of the church, there were Christians being slaughtered, killed. All of the disciples, barring one, were killed. So if this was made up, why do you have all these people dying for their faith? Why do you have Paul saying, hey, if you don't believe me, go talk to this person, go talk to this person? They saw him. And all these people are getting killed en masse until the Roman Caesar is converted, and then Christianity becomes a legal religion. But the idea that we don't have any evidence for Jesus, I'm sorry, even secular historians say that that's just unfortunately not true. And if you believe in Julius Caesar, you also have to believe that there was a man named Jesus who lived.
Well, let's dive in a little bit, because you got a lot. You said a whole lot right there. So let's do some internet stuff. That's what the internet's good for. No, I just thought it was funny because I just Googled proof Julius Caesar existed, and one of the first articles was, yes, but Jesus didn't.
Robert, again, this is if we wanted to get into the manuscript evidence, I'd love to do that. But I mean, I don't know where you're at, but I'd really love to try to hone in onto, does God explain morality, or is it subjective and up
Well,
to
I
people
don't
to decide?
like. Oh, I
If
mean, we
you're
can
okay
go
with
back to
that.
it if you want. Absolutely. I mean, that was the original topic. I felt like,
Yeah.
okay. I guess I haven't heard any counter arguments that really refute my argument, though.
My counter argument is that morality is intrinsic to the ontological God.
Uh, well, what evidence do we even have of the ontological God?
Is racism acceptable?
What does that have to do with anything? Like, for our society, it's not
It
cool.
has to do with
Like
everything
if you're
in the
acting,
it has
if you're asking if it's acceptable, like people have freedom of speech, they're allowed to do racism, but it's not good for our society.
right. So the point of me saying that is humans have intrinsic value. Uh, if God did not create humans, then humans have no more value than a rock. If you take a 1-year-old baby and you hold him over a bridge and you throw him down on the ground, and then you take a rock and you throw it down the same bridge, was one of those morally acceptable and the other not morally acceptable?
Well, okay, so now we're getting a bit into the nitty gritty. I like this. So human beings have a moral structure set up, like things to allow our society to function and thrive. Obviously, throwing a rock doesn't really impact our society, so that's fine. Throwing a human being is assault.
I agree because we're made in the image of God. So,
Well,
would you agree?
no. The reason why it's not allowed is because we can't have a thriving society if people are just allowed to beat the shit out of each other.
But Robert, my point is, why not? Because if morality is conventional, then
Because,
on convention you can make things up.
but how did we get to this point in society? What was the key that helped us get to this point in our society?
The Christian worldview. Treat others
No,
with
no,
respect.
it
Don't
wasn't. It
murder.
was
Don't steal. Don't
it.
rape.
It's working together. It's combining our forces to build the society we currently live in. And a lot of our morality is built up to sustain that idea that we all work together and build it towards a better society, just pretty much for ourselves.
Right. So is morality conventional?
Morality convention. I'm not even sure what you mean. Like, how conventional?
Is morality a thing that people have created?
More or less, yeah. I mean, it's things that we've kind of universally accepted help with our society. Like we can't go around murdering
Uh,
people.
right, I agree. So if morality is conventional, then what if in 5 years people decide, you know what? Um, actually, you know what? If you're okay with me talking about this, there's a real life example right now. Um, Israel and Palestine,
Oh
or
boy.
the Gaza situation. And I don't want to get political. But I just want to try to show you what I'm getting at here. Um, does Hamas as a society have the right to kill Israelites? Or if you're on the other side, do Israelites have the right to protect their society and kill Palestinians or Hamas or whoever it is? Do they have a right to kill each other?
No, they don't have a right to kill each other. That's an easy one. Now, there's a whole ball of worms between Israel
Why
and
not?
Palestine. Do they have a right to? That's because that's thriving together for a better society. That's a key element. Like killing, like
Well,
you
they
can't
would
have a
disagree.
society if people kill each other.
They would disagree. They would say that the best society, or Hamas would say the greatest society is a society without Israel.
I'm sure they would, but it doesn't mean they're right.
But you've just said that morality is for the purpose of building up a society.
Yeah.
So is it
So
right when a
so
society
are you?
says we should kill these people to build a society?
Do you think we should build towards a society like the Israel Palestinian situation? Because I would say we shouldn't build towards that.
We certainly should not build toward
Yeah.
that. I was just using that as an example. Another example would be here in America. Let's say that President Joe Biden says, you know what, to build our economy, to help people with groceries and save money, we're going to kill all the redheads. And that way we'll have more resources and more things and more money to go around. So tomorrow, find a redhead and kill them. Is that morally acceptable?
Of course not.
But that would help society. You see,
How? How would that help
if we
society?
got rid of the redheads, we would be
Joe Biden saying something
well.
like,
Okay,
dude, like part of my thing was that I'm not willing to accept, like, if God said kill all redheads to help society, I wouldn't accept it. Why would I accept it if Joe Biden said that?
the point I'm trying to show is that societal conventions do not override morality because
Well, that's
morality
not
is
even a societal
transcendental to
convention.
the
That's just
human
somebody saying
experience.
something.
You're right. It is not a societal convention because God is transcendent and his law is transcendent. And the law of God is written on the human heart. And we know that murdering is wrong, regardless of what society tells us.
Well, I mean, how many times does God do, or at least endorse some murder in the Bible? How many murders have been done in the name of God?
I concede that people use and abuse the Bible and take it out of context and do horrific things with it.
Uh, all right. So, I mean, we already went through like the Bible verse where God endorses slavery. And according to you, that's okay, right? Like,
Absolutely not. Modern day slavery is an abomination.
okay. Well, why is it okay?
But 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 I but
I'm willing to accept there's
well,
different
Robert,
societies, but like, um, even back in the past, slavery is not good in my opinion. Just because at one time it was
I
socially acceptable doesn't make it good.
Robert, I think you are misunderstanding the slavery of the ancient times of antiquity. Slavery, as we understand it, is not slavery as they understand it. It would be closer to an indentured servant situation.
So is that okay then? And how like define me the exact difference between an indentured servant and a slave?
So what the Israelites would do, and this was very common in all, well, not I can't say all, I don't know, but many societies of antiquity would engage in this kind of slavery, is what it was called. If you couldn't afford to live anymore, if your crops weren't growing, if all your cattle died and you couldn't feed yourself, you would go to someone, excuse me, who was well off, and you would enslave yourself to them, and you would become their slave. And then they would take your family, they would provide for you, they would do things to keep you alive. You were a slave, 100%. You had to work. You were a slave, but you got to live. Your family was taken care of. And the great thing about the Israelites is that every 7 years they would have a chance to be free. Or actually, there were some instances where there was a certain contract and you'd only have to be enslaved for a certain amount of years and then you could start your life again. The idea that the Israelites were capturing people and enslaving them and forcing them to work and beating them is anachronism.
Well, I mean, you just said they were forced to work. I mean, even if they weren't beating them, that's still pretty shitty. Um,
Well, well, I have to go to work tomorrow, which is pretty
well,
lame
true.
as
I
well. I
mean,
mean,
I agree, but at least I get time off to do whatever I want. I don't have to live in some
I
place some
concede that
person
today's
assigned.
workforce is much better.
Hmm.
Yes,
I'm.
yes,
I
today's work
mean,
is way easier.
I mean, my whole argument is essentially like I don't see any like solid evidence that there's any morality written in stone whatsoever. It is simply uh like whatever we do to keep our society better or improve it as we go. I think the best, honestly, the best moral code I've found is essentially the golden rule: do unto others as you would do unto you. If there is something you want to do and it doesn't harm yourself or others, go ahead, do it. Um, that simple.
Right. Um, because people have intrinsic value. Yeah, don't harm others because they matter.
Well, I mean, if you want to break it down to the simplest aspect, like for a society to function, we can't be harming each other. And like I said, like from a universal level, individual humans don't matter. But I know I matter to me. I know my family matters to me. I know that's really important. I'm sure the same can be said for you. Uh, so,
Right.
at least from our perspective, uh, the people we matter and the people in our lives matter.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Um, what I'm trying to get at is people have intrinsic value. You know this, I know this. The question is, where does that value come from? Because, Robert, on one hand, you're saying there was a big bang, we don't really know, but there was something, and then boom, here we are. And on the other hand, you're saying society needs to function. It's good when society is flourishing. It's good when you don't harm others. It's good when you treat others with respect. Robert, those two don't go together. You can't have naturalism and materialism and then somehow say people matter. Like, oh, we're all accidents. None of this really matters. But also, society should flourish and treat others with respect. My answer and my proof for God is that without God, you can't prove anything. God is the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of all reality, including morality. You can't make sense of any reality unless we were created by God and have intrinsic value because we have his image. That's my argument.
Okay, so you're saying two things are contradictory when they're not. One is essentially me saying, I don't know how we're created. I don't. But I do know we live in a society and I want this society to thrive. I want as many people as possible to thrive in our society. I want as many people to do well in our society, and I think we should do things to aim for that. I don't see any contradiction there at all.
Because you're assuming that people matter. You're assuming that society
Well,
should
dude,
flourish. Why should it flourish instead
I've,
of burn to the ground?
well, dude, I've already explained from a universal level, like the grand universe, the Earth could just go pop. The universe doesn't give a shit. It doesn't matter, but it matters to us.
Okay. So again, it's convention. It's up to a society to determine what's best for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily could, dude. It actually varies quite a bit. Like, there's plenty of things in this society that I don't think are great. It's up to people kind of to decide and push society in the best direction forward.
Right. So, but what happens when someone decides to push a society forward and they're doing something immoral? Like Nazi Germany, Hitler was pushing society forward by killing the Jews.
I would argue
You're
he was
saying
pushing
they
it
can't do
backwards,
that, but
well, actually, yeah, they were
but
kind. He was kind of
yeah,
pushing it
but
backwards when he did that.
yeah, but Robert, what I'm trying to say is, who are you? And I don't mean this to be a jerk, but who are you to decide what is forward and backwards? If a society determines
I
something, do they have the right or do they not have the right?
I think killing what was it 6 million Jews, something like that. I think it's safe to say that's not good and pushing society backwards. I don't think that's a hot take whatsoever.
But according to what standard? Because you're saying that society flourishing is the greatest good.
Yeah.
Well, who decides what flourishing is?
Well, I think killing doing mass murder is uh, pretty unambiguously bad.
Right, but according to your worldview, that's just your opinion.
I think it's an opinion of a lot of people.
I agree because we're made in the image of God.
Okay, so like I'm not even sure where we're at here. So like, yeah, I think mass murder is bad because it's bad. Like you're extinguishing a fuck ton of lives that matter to them and to the people around them, and to society. Like I think that's pretty easy to figure out. I like.
Right.
I don't think
So
you
what
need
I'm
God.
getting,
Like here, I don't think you need God to tell you that the Holocaust was bad.
I think that without God, the Holocaust doesn't matter. I think that
Wow, really?
if you don't have an
Really?
objective stand,
I think it matters to the
100%,
Jewish families.
100%,
I
Robert.
think they would I think they would care.
I concede that they would care, but if God doesn't exist and if God isn't in himself the standard of morality, then at base, all that you have is atoms bumping against atoms, protoplasm that doesn't mean anything. None of it really matters.
So
All that it is one person's opinion versus another.
okay. But let's. I guess it'd be a hypothetical from your point. It's I guess the hypothetical I live. Let's assume it is all that. But we are also human beings. We live in this world. We've built this society. Um, don't you think maybe we should make the best of it?
Well, again, yeah, I think that society growing and flourishing is a good thing, but that's not necessarily what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to get at is why should society, the people, why should people flourish? You're because I
Why
concede, I
should
agree
be
with you. People
well?
should treat each other with
Yeah, I
respect.
mean that's fairly simple because I want like as a human species, I want the best possible future for not just me, but for my children, my grandchildren, for my friends and their children. I want the best possible future for the chat and their children, for you and your children. I want to keep on pushing towards the best possible future for everybody. And if Earth goes pop, I hope it doesn't. Then and it's all over, and then it's unfortunate. But I think until then, I think we should just push for the best possible world and the best possible lives we can live.
Right, right, and I agree, and I think that that's beautiful, and I don't mean this to be a jerk, but I truly believe that that's the image of God in you, saying that people matter, people have value, people mean something, because on one hand you're saying that we are an accident, and then on the other you're saying that you want people to have good lives, and I think that that's beautiful. But what I'm trying to show you, Robert, is that within your own worldview, you can't account for why people should have good lives.
Because
Because according to
I
you,
mean that's
none of
fairly
this really
simple.
matters.
Well, no, I mean, dude, like I said, like from a universal standard, it really kind of doesn't. It's kind of scary. Like I don't think it's healthy as a person to look at from a universal standard, because it really kind of doesn't. We're one of God knows how many planets. God knows how much actual other life forms there are. Um, I hope they're more evolved than we are. But like, we don't know how many other life forms or how many things there are out there in the universe. But we are simply a speck of dust. And I just think the value is, frankly, to ourselves, to our own selfish needs as a species, to push forward as the best we can. And I don't see how God is intrinsic to that whatsoever. Because, I mean, like I said, at the end
I
of the
would
day,
say
like, from a universal standard, we don't really matter.
right, right. As a Christian, I would say that we do matter, because God created the cosmos and He cares enough about us, because we're created in His image. But I mean, man, you said something. I wish I could remember what it was. Um, it's slipping my mind. But I'm trying to get you to see. You're saying on a big picture, none of it matters. That's great. That's consistent with your worldview. But let's bring your worldview to bear on reality. If big picture, none of it matters, and then we get smaller and smaller picture, and then all of a sudden it does matter. Well, there's a change there. Can you account for the change, other than it's what you want? Because what
Well, I
you
think it'd be
want
what
isn't
everybody
the final
wants,
arb.
but
No, yeah, no. Thank you for the clarification. I also agree that everyone wants to live and everyone wants to have good, happy lives. But at the end of the day, can we account for why it matters? Ultimately, the atheist worldview says
I mean,
no.
an
There's no
argument can
reason
be
that it
made that
matters.
doesn't. An argument that, well, here, actually, I'll tell you a little story. It's a nice little story. It actually doesn't have anything to do with God, but it helps explain my point. So there was a couple people, two people on the beach, and there's this huge wave, and a whole bunch of starfish just get hit on the shore. Like hundreds of them are hit on the shore. The first person walks up, starts grabbing the starfish, throwing them back to the ocean. And the first person's like, What are you doing? They're going to dry up. You can't save them all." Or the second person asking that. And the first person says, "Well, what I'm doing matters to the one I throw in."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's beautiful. Can you account for why it matters?
That's the thing. From the grand scale, like from a universal standpoint, it probably doesn't. I have no reason to believe it matters from a universal standpoint. But from an individual standpoint, from even a societal standpoint, it matters.
It matters only because the people care about it, but not objectively, right?
Objectively, I I mean, I think it all depends what we're talking about. Like, I think we can argue pretty clearly that murder is objectively bad for society, and there are lots of things that are fairly objectively bad for society. Um,
Uh, right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Murder is bad in a utilitarian sense that it harms society. But what I'm talking about, because you're talking about utilitarianism. You're
yeah.
saying
Oh,
that the
yeah.
greatest
No,
good
a lot of
is
what I do is based on utilitarianism to a degree. I mean, I don't follow it strictly, but like, there's variance. Yeah.
right, right. Um, what I'm saying is utilitarianism is great. We shouldn't be killing people, but ultimately, okay. Well, let me ask you this. Um, Utilitarianism is about society becoming better, however you want to define that, becoming better, the lives of people becoming easier, the greatest happiness and the smallest bad stuff. Would you agree with that, right?
The greatest happiness and the. Okay, yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay. So, um, disabled people, they're a burden to society. Elderly people, they're a burden to society. Should we kill them?
Absolutely not.
But but according to utilitarianism, and actually, you know
Dude,
what? There was a German
I
engineer.
actually just did say that like I don't strictly follow utilitarianism, but I do take a lot from it. I
Right,
don't
right. I
strictly
know.
follow it.
I, I understand. I'm just trying to bring out your worldview a little bit. There was a German engineer, I forget the guy's name, but he had an idea for a roller coaster that he would put the elderly people on, the disabled people on, and what the roller coaster would do is take all the blood out of your brain and kill you by the end of the ride. Um, in utilitarianism, if the greatest good that we as humans can do is to move forward as a society, should we not therefore hinder or get rid of hindrances such as the disabled, such as elderly people who can't take care of themselves?
Well, not like okay, so like I do believe like if maybe somebody's elderly and they're not happy with their life and they want to end it, I think that should be a choice left up to them. But like just killing them because they're a hindrance, absolutely not.
But if utilitarianism
And
is the
I already
greatest
said I
good that
don't
we as a
strictly
society
follow
can do,
utilitarianism.
right? I understand that. Um, but but what I'm trying to see is you have an objective standard where you're saying don't kill, don't kill, don't kill, and I say yes and amen. But on the other hand, you're saying that the greatest good we can do, as far as morality is concerned, is utilitarianism. And when that comes to bear, what I'm trying to show you is morality in conjunction with utilitarianism doesn't work because utilitarianism says get rid of the disabled, get rid of the people who can't work, get rid of the people who can't help, and keep the people who can make life productive. You're saying no, that's horrible, that's bad, and I agree. But what I'm saying is, by what standard do you say that the disabled, the lame, the elderly
Well,
deserve to live?
I
Because in
mean,
Christianity, we say they're made in the image of God and they have worth because of their creator. But according to atheism and whatever philosophy you want to attach to it, they don't really matter.
okay, so you keep on trying to pin me with utilitarianism here when I simply said like I just largely take lots of ideas from it. Like I've already kind of explained what my moral philosophy is. Kind of, um, you should be allowed to pursue whatever you want as long as it doesn't harm yourself or others. Killing somebody who doesn't want to be killed would be harming them, no matter their age or abilities whatsoever. So I would be against that.
Right. But this all comes back full circle of why do all humans matter? Forget utilitarianism. According to you, why do humans matter?
Again, I feel like we're spinning our wheels a bit, which might be, maybe we'll wrap up here in a little bit. But again, so like from the universal standpoint, I don't think we do. I don't think we do. I think what happens on Earth is kind of weird. I think maybe George Carlin had it closest where he said humanity is this experiment nature did because it wanted plastic on Earth, and once it's got plastic, it'll just dump us and be like, "Hey, we got the plastic now, we win." But yeah, from the grand scale of thing, I don't know if humanity matters, but I do know it matters to me. I know it matters for my family. So from a personal perspective, I want to see it thrive.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I agree. I think uh, I'm gonna close up with this. I'll try to keep
Yeah.
it short. But
Okay.
what I've tried to do is take your worldview and your idea that big picture, none of this matters, and I've tried to bring it down to the everyday life, the ins and outs. If we don't matter, which you have said that we don't, then why is human flourishing important? As a Christian, I would say
Because it's
that
important to
God,
humans.
right. As a Christian, I would say that God created us in his image. He cares about us and he values us. And full circle, I'm almost done, I promise. I know I talk a lot.
It's
Morality
all good.
comes from the character of God. It's not outside of God, because if God had a morality outside of himself, then that thing would become the greatest good, and then that thing would become God, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
polytheism. Morality is from the character of the ontological trinity. is from him. And the reason that we have even a concept of right and wrong is because we are made in his image and we reflect his glory. Now, the unbelievers suppress that in unrighteousness and they try to find ways to work around it. But at the end of the day, the image of God will always come to bear on the lives of all humans.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and I'm trying to think what closing statement. Very fancy. Kind of just for me, it's um, human beings I just want human beings to live in the best world possible and continue striving for the best world possible. I have no evidence. I've seen no evidence of God. Um, but I also like as far as the original question, I've seen obviously if God can't say murder is good, then he's not the moral authority. There's something over him, or even I would say something a bit more man-made, that just murder is wrong. And if we want our society to flourish, we have to set down certain rules, like don't murder each other, don't commit assault, don't do things to harm each other in general. And like I said before, my worldview, my moral philosophy is fairly simple. I think people should be allowed to pursue whatever they want as long as it doesn't harm themselves or others. And honestly, just do unto others as you would do unto yourself. That's kind of where I'm at, basically. Um, Brandon, it was nice talking to you, man. I think we very much disagree on this, but this was a pleasant conversation.
Yes, yes. Hey, you know what? Thank you so much for having me on. I would absolutely agree. It was a very pleasant conversation. I had a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and I hope that we didn't, go to bat too hard
No, no, it
because this
wasn't
was
hard at
quite
all.
enjoyable. So
No, no, this is
thank you
actually
so
a nice
much.
conversation. Even
Yeah,
though I disagree wildly, and I'm sure you feel the same. But yes, have a good one,
sure,
man.
sure. All right. Thank you. Thank you.